As you can all see, the sky is blue. DJ Physio is made easy for you. This is our first video, hoping that this video will be more helpful in your part of study. So before we get into the subjects, let's get into the basics. So the vertebrae. What are the vertebrae? Vertebrae are the 33 individual interlocking bones which form the spinal cord. The 33 vertebrae are 7 cervical, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 5 sacral and 4 coccyx. So now let's get into the subjects. Lumbar vertebra and its anatomy. Lumbar vertebrae are the largest segments of the vertebral column. So now let's see the general characteristics of the lumbar vertebrae. So what we see is the spinous process, which is thick, broad and somewhat quadrilateral. It projects backwards and ends in rough, uneven border. Next is the superior articular facet. They lie between the junction of the pedicle and the laminae. They are projecting in upward directions. What we see is the transverse process. They are long and slender. They are horizontal in alignment. Next we see is the body. The body is large and wider from side to side than from front and back. Pedicles. Pedicles are the strong, directed backwards from the upper part of the vertebral body. Inferior articular facet. They are projecting downwards from the junction of the pedicle and the laminae. Let's see about the anatomical features of the lumbar vertebra. Lumbar spine consists of 5 movable vertebrae numbered from L1 to L5. Lumbar vertebra are the largest segment among the vertebral column. They support the weight of the body and also permit the movements. Lumbar vertebra is present between the thoracic spine and the sacral spine. Lumbar lordosis. Lordosis occasionally occurs in children and teenagers as their spine develops. Lumbar region forms antero-posterior lordosis. Here is what about antero-posterior lordosis from the lateral view. Lumbar lordosis, also called as secondary curvatures, which result in difference in the thickness between front and back part of the intervertebral disc. Lordosis may increases at the puberty, sometimes not becoming evident until the 20s. Lumbar vertebra lies between the ribs and the pelvis. The lumbar vertebral bodies are larger than the thoracic vertebral bodies. As we said already, the lumbar vertebra is larger than the other vertebral segments. These are the lumbar regions. Comparing to the other vertebral bodies, lumbar is larger. They are wedge shaped. The wedge shape of the lumbar vertebra. This wedge shape of vertebral body helps to maintain the lordosis. Now let's go deep into the general characteristics of the lumbar vertebra. Spinous process. As we discussed before, spinous process are larger, thicker, and quadrangular. It is present in the horizontal plane. As we discussed, it projects backward and end in a rough, uneven border. Spinous process. The spinous process of L4 vertebra is shorter than the other lumbar vertebrae. This is the L4 vertebra. See, comparatively, L1, L2 and L3 is larger than the L4 vertebra. The blue coloration is the lumbar vertebra L4. We can also palpate the L4 spinous process at the level of the iliac crest. Next is the transverse process. The transverse process are long, thin, and it is directed laterally, both the sides. This is the transverse process, which is aligned in a horizontal manner. Let's get on to the facet orientations. Facet is orientated in the sagittal plane. which is very important fact for the manipulation. So, above is the superior articular facet, below is the inferior articular facet, which is aligned in the sagittal plane. Hence, this type of facetal orientation allows more flexion and extension than the side flexion and the rotation. Now let's move on to the movements of the lumbar vertebra. It moves flexion and extension at 15 to 20 degree. This motion is more at L5 vertebra, which is 20 degree. The side flexion of each vertebra is 6 degree, which is less at L5 vertebra, that is about 3 degrees. Rotation is about 2 to 4 degree, which is more at L5 vertebra, which is about 6 degrees. Let's move on to the coupled motions. Flexion and extension coupled with antero-posterior translatory slides, which is in the sagittal plane. While doing the flexion and extension, it occurs translatory slides between two vertebrae in the sagittal plane. The lateral flexion is coupled with contralateral translatory slide in the frontal plane. When we flex laterally, the contralateral side occurs the translatorally slide, which occurs in the frontal plane. The rotation is coupled with the discompression in the horizontal plane. The rotation movement which occurs disc to compress in the horizontal plane. Next, we move on to the ligaments. There are 5 ligaments in the lumbar vertebra. They are anterior longitudinal ligament, posterior longitudinal ligament, ligamentum flavum, intertransverse ligament, and the interspinous ligament. Anterior longitudinal ligament. It attaches to the front of each vertebra. It runs up and down the spine vertically. Posterior longitudinal ligament. It runs up and down behind the spine and inside the spinal canal. Ligamentum flavum. It connects under the facet joints to create a small curtain over the posterior openings between the vertebrae. Intertransverse ligament, which is present between the transverse process of two vertebrae. Interspinous ligament. It is present between the two spinous process of the vertebrae. Intervertebral disc. Intervertebral disc, which is present between each two vertebrae. That is, it lies between two adjacent vertebrae. The inner portion of the intervertebral disc is made up of nucleus pulposus. The outer portion of the intervertebral disc is made up of annulus fibrosus. The intervertebral disc, which is present between the two adjacent vertebrae. What we see is the intervertebral disc. Outer portion which we see is the annulus fibrosus. Functions of the lumbar vertebra. The 33% of the vertebral column height is made up of lumbar vertebrae. It is a good shock absorption. It helps and support in weight bearing and distributions. It can also permit the movement. It can withstand the compressive, torsional and bending loads. Making the way to understand in a easy format. As you know, DJ Physio is made easy for you. So please do subscribe our channel and we will do our best to help you the easier way. Challenges are what making life interesting. Overcoming them is what makes life meaningful. Thank you.